Mr. Paul Campbell, thank you for coming and hanging out with me today and talking on the Filmmaking Friends podcast. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's long overdue. We've been chatting about this for a
I
while.
know, I know. I have this really bad habit of getting excited about guests on the show, and I'm like, "You want to be on the show?" And they're like, "Yeah." And then I say, "How about next week?" And they say, "Yeah." And then I go, "Oh, I can't do it next week." And then it goes 7 months later. So I'm like, I can't fake Paul out anymore. I have to really commit this time. This is probably
This was the last straw. If you bailed on this one, that was it. Done for life.
That's right. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. So I'm kind of excited for a couple of reasons. One, this is the first time I'm actually doing the podcast with a video feed. So I'm going to put that on the YouTube channel. But also, I always love interviewing people from my hometown of Vancouver, Canada. So you're my fellow Vancouverite.
That's right.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, since I don't know, where'd you grow up in Vancouver? What part?
So I was born at VGH, Vancouver General, and we lived in Jericho until I was 5. And then my family moved to White Rock, actually. So I basically, my whole childhood, and I grew up in White Rock, not Surrey. I want to make that very clear. I grew up in White Rock. Where the streets have names, not numbers.
Right. Yes, I would probably do the same thing. I would make that very clear. White Rock. White Rock is a beautiful place. I was born in North Vancouver, but then at about 8, I moved to Burnaby and pretty much lived in Burnaby most of my life.
Was that on your own? You did that? You just you just got tired of the rain in North Van, and you were like, "I'm out of here."
I'm out of here in North. That's right. That's where most of the rain is. Right. It's in North Vancouver.
The clouds get stuck on the mountains, and they just sit there.
That's right.
Just rain dumped. Yeah. I mean, there's rain everywhere. Let's be honest. You're not escaping. But.
Well, it's actually interesting you mentioned that, actually, as a side note, just for a second here, but a good friend of mine and who has worked with you, he worked on, I think, 88 Minutes with you, Neil McDonough.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was in Vancouver. I think it was, I can't remember what show he was on. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't remember what show he was on. He works all the time. But when I was talking to him, he was telling me that he specifically moved out towards Richmond because he had taken the time to study where the rain was the least. And that's where he wanted to live. And that's where he lived.
Yeah, the clouds just kind of blow over it and then they stop. It's when the clouds are very expansive, that's when you get the rain. But same with White Rock. It's called sunny White Rock because it's anything right on the water seems to be least affected. But
yeah. Well, and you guys have that beautiful pier out there and all that. I love it.
And that giant white rock. I mean, I still can't figure out how the town was named, but it's probably for that giant white rock.
Giant white rock. Yeah, exactly.
It just came together for me.
Yeah. So how's your French? Bonjour, Paul Campbell. Comment ça va? Haha. See?
Listen, obviously I didn't go to a French immersion school, and there was some French taught, as you know, there's French taught, but I did one French course in grade 8, or 8th grade, as y'all say down in America. And I was like, I think I'm done. I think I've learned enough French. And I was a big woodworker, and I had my woodwork teacher advocate for me to the principal to get me out of the mandatory 9th grade French class. And he actually put me in an extra woodwork class. He's like, this guy's he's on the fast track to, a career as a carpenter, and I want to really get it going. So I didn't have to take 9th grade French. So my French is not great, which is funny because my son just started kindergarten at a French immersion school, and he's coming home and he's like, papa. And I'm like, oh, what have we done? What have we done? This boy's already smarter than me.
Yeah. Well, just to be completely transparent, that's all the French I know is what I just said to you, because I also had a hard time with grade 8 French, the mandatory grade 8 French class. And I think that's what they taught me on day 1. And that's all I remember. I don't remember.
It's pretty convincing. I would say you never have to blow your cover, because that was pretty convincing.
Well, thank you. I have shot a movie in France, and it was very difficult since I didn't speak French.
Giving the illusion of being able to speak a language is not the same as being able to speak a language.
Right. Well, okay. Here's how you can redeem yourself. How about your ice skating? How's your ice skating?
Terrible. I'm a terrible ice skater.
Really?
We So this movie that I wrote last year, 2 years ago with Kim Susted, we wrote in
yes.
an ice skating scene, and then we got to it was the first day of filming, and we were like, oh, neither of us really, she's better than I am. She hadn't skated in a while. I really never learned how to skate. So it took her a minute. She figured out, she kind of got back to a place where she could look credible. And I just was like, oh, I actually cannot skate. I didn't play hockey. We couldn't afford it growing up. Hockey's expensive. And my family was like, you're playing soccer. It's a pair of soccer boots every year and some shin pads every 4 years. That's all we can pay for.
Well, I think the reason that I can skate was because at Burnaby North, we had a skating rink attached basically to the school. And every Friday in the wintertime, we would go skating for PE class.
Oh, so that's incredible.
That's how I learned how to skate. So
my PE class, my PE class was just like basketball, volleyball, and line dancing. Did you have to do the line dancing?
Yep, I had to do the line dancing.
There's a skill that really paid off for me. That's something I really carry with me.
Yeah, that line dancing. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the ice skating scene in Christmas by Starlight, right? Christmas by Starlight. Which you also wrote, which is kind of the meat of what I want to talk to you about your writing process and all that. But it's funny because I saw that movie, and it's great, by the way. It really is. It's one of my very favorite Christmas movies. I'm not making that up. It's really good. And I remember watching the skating scene and going, they shouldn't write scenes for actors to skate if they really actually can't really skate very well.
Yeah.
And then I looked you up and I'm like, wait, he's Canadian. How I don't understand. Maybe they just didn't use the good footage or something. Something's happening here. So
you know what really happened?
Now I understand.
We were supposed to have stunt doubles, and it was supposed to be a much bigger thing. And then they were like, the stunt double, it's not going to work. We actually need to shoot you guys. It was supposed to just be us like pushing off, and then kind of be a big wide effect of this like the Dirty Dancing jump and lift and a spin. That was never going to be us. You write it with stunt doubles in mind. You're not going to write like a Jason Statham action movie going, let's only write action sequences that Jason Statham can personally pull off. That's not how you write a movie. You write it big and you go, we'll figure it out. And then we got there and they're like, we can't figure this out.
Yeah.
So we ended up looking like dummies a little bit.
But the thing that was so great about that film is I remember when I was watching it, and again, this is the first time I had ever seen you. I know you've done much more before this point in your career, but this is the first time that that you're on my radar. And I remember there's a scene in a Christmas tree lot, and she's telling you got to get in there and take a piece and smell it, and you pull it, and then you're like, I'm going for it, and you just go all the way back into the tree. There's no stunt double. There's probably no pads. And I'm just like, this guy. I like this guy.
Go big or go home, man. They were like, we think it's going to be too big. And Kim and I were like, no, we're going to try that. We're going to do that. That's what this was supposed to be.
Yeah, I know. I realize that on those Hallmark films that you do you've done a lot of Christmas films and a lot of the other rom-coms that they have as well. But I know that there's always that fine balance of comedy, right? They don't want you to go too big, too broad, whatever. But I can tell that if they would just release you, that you would take it a little bit further. And to be honest with you, I think it would be even more enjoyable personally.
It happens every time. They see that stunt and they go, oh, we love that thing. And you go, well, you didn't trust me to do it. I had to fight for that. And it was probably like the fourth take where I was like, can I just go completely backwards onto the ground? And they go, okay, you can try one, but it'll never work. And then they see it, and it happens every time. They don't trust the big thing you pitch will actually work well and fit tonally in the film, and then you do it, and they go, we love that scene.
Yeah. Well, it's great.
That's the battle.
I understand. It's the battle. Yeah. And, I just, for the first time this year, got to direct my first Christmas film, and, mine's not on Hallmark, so we didn't hold back any punches. We went for the comedy. So
where did that one go? Where did it end up?
It's going to air on Lifetime. This Christmas season. Yeah. I'll send you a link so you can check it out. But Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I want to get into talking about, you as an actor and an actor turned screenwriter. I know you still act, of course, but I want to go back a little bit. I'd love to ask all of my guests, when you were a kid, did you have a favorite movie? One that you could just watch? And
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. Yes. That's a
Probably
great
50
movie.
times. Yeah,
That's,
it's my
yeah.
favorite movie still to this day. I
Yeah.
rewatched it. I watch it probably once a year with my brother.
Yeah.
Between the two of us, we probably know 80% of the lines still. I
Yeah.
bought like the entire Ghostbusters Playmobil set for my son with like Ecto 1, the car. We got the fire station. We got all the characters. I watched it with him. He's 5 and he loved it. We're super excited about the new Ghostbusters coming
Right.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I had to cop to being a nerd about anything, it's Ghostbusters. And for me, Bill Murray, I mean, everybody in that movie was extraordinary, but Bill Murray has been my acting inspiration for my entire life. And largely because of that performance. Is what he does in that movie is so subtle and so extraordinary comedically.
Yeah.
It's just effortless what he's doing. And he's brilliant. I feel like that's like an Oscar-worthy performance to do what he does in that movie, or a Harold Ramis even, what they're doing in that movie is genius level comedy. And the reason that the Paul Feig's version didn't work is because you didn't ask me this question, but I'm going to tell you.
I'm ready.
Because I felt like all the actors who are extraordinary actors in their own right were working really hard to be funny and trying to live up to this, carry this mantle that was so big. They were working really hard to be characters. And in the first movie, none of the actors tried to be anything other than just like people, they weren't trying. And that's why the comedy works. And I've worked really hard, aside from like huge falls into Christmas trees, to sort of echo a lot of those tones in my comedy and really like subtle. It's all in the looks and the reactions. And I think there's a lot of Bill Murray's style. I hope a lot of his influence in the comedy that I've done throughout my career.
Well, I think that's very true. I think that I can see beyond just what you're performing in the film and roles that you do. And I can see that there's, organically, there's a process going on for you. And comedy is an important part, especially of the kind of the films, these rom-coms and things like that. It's an organic, natural part, especially when you're like interacting with someone that you're becoming attracted to as a character or whatever. All that is a big part of it. And I think that Ghostbusters, you're right, is the performances they're not forced at all. They just come off really great. I think that and maybe you already do this, but I think you should pay a little homage in future scripts that you write. Like I think you should have in one of these.
I do it all the time.
Oh, you do? Because
I
think you should pull every movie. I think you should pull like, like, oh, I always wanted to do this. And then you like pull the tablecloth, like the flowers stayed or whatever that line is.
I do it with line reads. Usually there's one in every movie. Sometimes it makes it in, but I've added line reads in most of my Hallmark movies, and I should really go back and do a supercut and see which ones made it in. But like what the hell are you doing? Like just in that tone. I don't know, Ray. I don't know. There's like for a Ghostbusters fan, it's obvious. For anybody else seeing it, I saw Ryan Reynolds do it once I think he does it in Van Wilder, and he goes, "I am gonna miss him." And that's a Bill Murray line read from Ghostbusters. And I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I saw that and I was like, either he just loved that line and delivered it exactly the same way, or it was an homage, but they're in there.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I've always, there's this moment when they catch the first ghost and he goes into the trap and Bill Murray makes this weird grunting sound.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed
and
that?
And he opens one eye.
Yeah.
And he kind of like, yeah.
It's so strange, but I love it. I see it every time I watch that film. So now, did you ever dress up as a Ghostbuster or anything for Halloween? Was that on your list of to-dos?
No, I think dressing up as a ghost is probably as close as I got to to that. I never did. I feel like all of my Halloween costumes were really not PC. This was like early to mid 80s, and they're just like, I don't know. I don't need to revisit, but they were a lot of homemade costumes. Honestly, I probably didn't get into Ghostbusters until I was like 10 or 12. Right. So it was kind of, at that point, I was just like a teenager walking around getting candy. You know, you'd put on like, you just pull a mask on your face and you're like, yeah, I'm dressed up. Give me some candy. But my son 1 year for sure will go in a full Ghostbusters suit with proton pack and all good. I'm going to build one for him 1 year.
And you're going to be a proud dad. You're going to be proud dad.
Yeah.
Well, hey, tell me this. So, at some point, you decide that you want to be an actor. Now, did you decide that early in life, or did that come later? Like, did you decide it when you were a kid, or it came pretty late for you?
No, my whole life I was going to be a builder. I wanted to build houses from as early as I can remember. That was my direction. And I did. When I graduated high school, I spent almost 4 years working with a framing crew, building houses in West Van, sort of all over Greater Vancouver, the Lower Mainland. And I really liked the work, but I just hated working in the rain. I couldn't because, you know, when you're framing houses, as opposed to doing the finishing, the framing almost essentially ends when the roof is on, right? So you're out on the deck, you're forming, you're completely in the rain, and then the roof goes on, and you're like, on to the next one. So it was those winters, you know, just having just soaking wet long days. And I was like, I think I don't love this anymore. And a friend of mine was doing background work on there was a Will Smith movie. I think it was AI that was shooting in Vancouver.
Sure. Yeah.
And he was, I talked to him one day and he was like, oh dude, I was hanging out with Will Smith by Craft Services on set. And, you know, I'm making like $15 an hour, which was like $1 more an hour than I was making. And he's like, you should come and do background work. And then, so I took an acting class thinking you needed an acting class to do background work. And I just fell in love with it. And I was like, I think I want to try and do something with this. So I went back to the boys and I said, I'm going to apply for theater schools. And they were like, okay. Yeah. And I went to theater school and then kind of started acting right out of the gate.
That's awesome. I think I got my first taste also as a background actor. It was in the late 80s. My first experience was on 21 Jump Street.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I went to the set of Jump Street. Do you remember what episode it was?
It was season 3. I remember it because you can see me in it. I think it's season 3. It's when the very first episode where Richard Grieco appears. Okay. And it's called Little Things, or I don't remember. And there's a cafeteria scene, and you clearly can see me with my Club Monaco sweatshirt and my pegged jeans, my Converse, and my hair that's like, you know, not 3 feet high, but, you know, high, you know, and you can see me perfect shot of me. So
that's amazing.
But after that, I really wanted to work in the film industry, not as an actor. I wanted to work in the camera. I became a PA, and then I worked in the camera department, and then eventually I moved to the States because I got tired of being a camera assistant in the rain. I think Airbud 3 did it to me. I think it was like, you know what? I want to be a DP, but I don't want to be a DP in the rain.
I think Airbud 3 did it to a lot of people. Let's be honest. I feel like that was the linchpin for a lot of career shifts.
Yeah, that's the one. Yep.
Airbud 3.
Airbud 3, gosh, and it, you know, and Airbud 3. I think at that point it was soccer, and there was no like shooting the basket into the hoop. It was just the dog pushing the ball on the ground for an hour and a half, and didn't get much better than that. Not really. No. Now, so I'd love to talk to you about you know, all the different projects you've worked on. Obviously, you did Battlestar Galactica, which is awesome. You're on that.
Thank you.
For a couple seasons. And then some point, you do lots of projects, but at some point you start getting into the Christmas and rom-com world. Mm-hmm. What was the first one of those that you did?
Well, the first one I did was in 2014, and it was called Window Wonderland.
Window Wonderland. That's with Kyler Lee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a movie with her husband, Nathan. He's really nice. And actually, when I met Kyler, she was pregnant. So she just had her first kid. She's super cool. I haven't seen that movie, but that was your first foray into the genre.
It was right sort of in the era as Bill Abbott was taking over Hallmark. This was the last movie that Barbara Fisher, this is boring for everybody, but Barbara Fisher was a big exec there. And this was right before she went her own direction. But I think it was the last movie she made at the network. And the script was written by Tippy and Neil Dabrowski, who, if you're an avid follower of these movies, are two of, as far as I'm concerned, my favorite writers that have written in Hallmark. If you go back and look at their catalog of films, they are the most well-written films. They're this like incredibly charming couple that live in Santa Monica, this older couple that were just prolific for Hallmark for a long time. And they've written some of their biggest, they do a lot of the Hallmark Hall of Fame movies now. But that script was written by them. And I had never auditioned for a Hallmark movie. My agent sent me the script, and I just loved the dialogue, and I liked the tone. I just liked everything about it. It really appealed to me. And I was like, this is not what I thought Hallmark movies were. This is actually a really fun, charming rom-com. And I auditioned for it, and I got the part. And I didn't know Kyler at the time. She was coming off Grey's Anatomy. And, they had, at the time, they were really in the business of bringing in a really well-known female lead for the movie. And then they would give shots to guys like me who nobody had really heard of in that world. And they don't do that as much anymore. Now the 1 and 2 seem to be both pretty well-known quantities.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was an opportunity for someone like me to sort of get their foot in the door. And the movie was fantastic, and it holds up, and it's still one of my favorite projects that I've ever done to this day.
I'll need to go back and watch it. I haven't had a chance to see that film. So obviously, you're kind of in the circuit with the Hallmark fam. You do a few movies a year. You have a movie coming out fairly soon, right? This month.
Yeah,
October,
and
right?
it comes out October 24th. So I don't know when this podcast airs, but
I'm going to air it as quickly as I can. Hopefully right before that happens.
Sunday the 24th. Yeah.
And what's that called?
It's called the Santa Stakeout, and it was with Tamara Mowry Housley and Joe Pantoliano.
Oh, you got Joey Pants. You got Joey Pants to be in the movie with you.
He's a bad guy, yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, bad guy. Oh.
Well, we think we're detectives. We go undercover to stake out this suspect.
Yeah.
And what a trip, man. It was great. It was a real departure in terms of storytelling for Hallmark. The A story was not two people falling in love. It was two detectives on this case, and it was really focused on them solving this case. And of course, sparks fly and they discover chemistry along the way. But it was a really nice departure from the tradition, the storytelling we've seen in the last 5 years. Hallmark is really doing a lot of that now.
Yeah.
Changing up their movie format.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And you wrote, we mentioned it before, Christmas by Starlight.
Mm-hmm. With Kim Susted, yeah.
Yeah. Was that the first script that you wrote?
That was the first script that was completely written by me and a partner. But the first movie I sold was called Sun, Sand, and Romance. And it was, I sold a concept to Hallmark, and they hired 3 other sets of writers to write it. It went through 3 different sets of writers. And then finally we were a week away from shooting, and I was just not happy with the dialogue. So I said, give me the script. And that was kind of, I was an executive producer. That's what they had me on as. So I said, give me the script. I'm going to do a full dialogue pass. So I spent a week just fully rewriting the dialogue, and I would kind of rewrite it as we went. And I think it proved to the executives at Hallmark that I could do the job. And then I went in and sold another movie that I think has been in development for a couple of years, but I think we're going to start, this is with another writer-director friend of mine. We'll probably start writing that in the next couple months. And then I worked with Kim Susted on A God Wink Christmas, and she had an idea that she pitched to me. And I just said, let's write the spec. So we wrote the spec, and we sold the script to Hallmark, and then and that was Christmas by Starlight, and we ended up shooting that. So that was really the first movie from concept to shooting that was our own completely.
Yeah. Well, you kind of hinted on this, but the idea of writing things that you would like to play, characters you would like to play, or dialogue that you would like to hear? Because I'm assuming that being an actor and then writing screenplays, you are in tune with how actors look at screenplays when they read them, when they read these scripts. Hey, that's dialogue that I could say. That's not forced. And I love the character development and these things. So I'm assuming as an actor, the perspective at which you look and take as you write a script, you see it through those glasses, that filter of an actor, right? To some degree. I mean, you can't help it. It's who you are.
Well, as an actor, you have the benefit of saying every single line aloud as you write it to see how it sounds. And it's, I don't know what other writers' process is, but it's definitely a leg up in terms of organic sounding dialogue. And, my gift, I think, is more dialogue and fitting puzzle pieces together. And what I found working with Kim was that she's really, really good at story. She's really good at character. And that's why we worked so well on Christmas by Starlight, is just because both of our skill sets individually worked together. They complemented each other so well. And, there's nothing worse than running into a chunk of dialogue or a piece of exposition in the script that is really clunky and just feels like you're delivering it either without any sort of emotional intention, or it just doesn't sound organic. And that was sort of our main focus in Christmas by Starlight, was like, anything that anybody feels bumps even a little bit or feels too on the nose or too saccharine or too whatever, like, let's just burn all of that stuff. Let's let it not exist in the script. And the thing that you run into in development, Hallmark has very specific sort of benchmarks they want you to reach, and certain things that they really want to see included in their movies. Particularly when it comes to exposition, and they certainly lean more toward being more direct with exposition and really telling the audience what's going on rather than letting them slowly discover it over the course of the movie. They want to have a banner up front that goes, "This is who the character is. This is what they want. This is where they're headed." And it's a formula that works, but it becomes a little bit more difficult trying to feed those pieces in organically. It's kind of a balancing act, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of attention to do it properly. And when you watch a movie, you run into a line that you go, "Oh God, that sounded terrible." It's because somebody didn't take the time to really fit that in organically. Or maybe it was a last minute line after, like, "Oh, we need someone to quickly explain why he's the owner of the ice cream shop." And you're like, but then you just have to have someone say, "Hi, good morning. It's so nice that you were able to inherit this ice cream shop from your aunt." There's no organic way to work that into the scene. And that does happen. It's like this scramble, So, but I like the challenge as a writer to tell all the story pieces, but in a way that is a way that I want to deliver these things.
So as part of your process, the physical part of the process, do you put out 3x5 cards and do an outline first, or are you basing it off of a scenario you think in your head and then build it from there? I mean, the seed of the idea for you, like, what do you usually base that on?
Yeah, there's usually a concept. There's an idea. Usually these are like, okay, what's the log line? What's the concept? And in Christmas by Starlight, it was, this woman goes to take down a real estate developer and ends up working for him. And, they work together to save the cafe. Basic concept. And then you kind of, particularly with Hallmark, there's a pretty standard structure to these films in the way that the story progresses. So you kind of know what the setup is going to be, and you kind of have to know what the end is going to be. And my process is like, I'll often get ideas for scenes, or I'll have inspiration. Sometimes it's just a line of dialogue or something that I go, "Oh, that's really funny. How can I build a scene around that? Or how can I fit that in?" You have these bookends often that you have to work within, and then I kind of just develop story pieces and fit them in as they go, and then sort of work to solve the puzzle. And it's not necessarily the most efficient process, but I'll do a wall with all the 3x5s. I'll do it act by act and just start plunking scenes in there and just see how it all fits. To me, it is just a giant puzzle of 85 scenes, and just make it all fit. That's the joy of it for me.
Yeah, I remember one of the first, I'm not really a screenwriter, but I've worked with screenwriters on projects. But I remember I had an idea for a film, a World War II film, and I just took 3x5 cards, and any idea, whether it was a shot, a piece of dialogue, a location, whatever, I would just write it on these cards. And then I put all these cards in a box. And I had a concept for the film. And I remember talking to the writer that I used, and I just went through the cards. I was thinking this is a funny line, or this is a great line. What do you think about this? No, okay, you know. And I thought there could be a cool scenario like this. What do you think? And then we just took like this box that I had, and we just refined it down to like a stack of like maybe like 60 cards. And I said, okay, I'll give this to you. You know, I'll give this to you, and then you, you know, let's use some of these pieces where we can.
Yeah,
And that's how we kind of collaborated. That was my contribution to the film.
you're connecting the dots, basically. You're like, we know we need to get from A to C. What does B look like?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So so now you obviously, you know, you've had a couple of these scripts that you've mentioned that you've sold, and you've got more coming up. If you were not going to write something that's romantic based or something for Hallmark, what would it be? I mean, what are some other genres or things that you'd love to write that maybe aren't so much comedy based?
I mean, honestly, I would like to write single camera comedy. That's what I would like. I really like writing the rom-coms, but I also really like single camera comedy, like something like The Office. I love that style. I love that tone. And I'm certainly not saying that I could write The Office, but if I could take a swing at it, that's what I would like to do. Something slightly absurdist, you know, really quirky and just really silly. I like really silly comedy. That's great. What I would do. Yeah.
Okay, so comedy is what's comfortable to you. Comedy is your lane. That's where you'd like to continue. That's where you're feeling your best. That's where you're performing your best. That's really where you like to live.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. That's very cool. So let me ask you this then. So you've done the acting, you've done the writing, you've taken the time as you're writing to develop something that you know that actors are going to love, you know, either you're playing it or someone else is playing it, and all these kind of things. Do you have any aspirations? Well, before I ask you this, after you've written a script as an actor and then you're in that production, is it hard to watch a director direct your material that you wrote?
Yeah, it is. It's tough. Because you've spent so much time with this thing in your head, and sometimes it's lovely to see surprises come out, you know, things that you didn't think of that you go, oh, I'm going to get credit for this because it looks like I wrote this, but I didn't. This is a brilliant idea. But there are times too when you have specific jokes or specific rhythms or specific tones. And sometimes, especially with these Hallmark movies, you're moving so quickly. And it's not even the director's fault. It's literally a production constraint that they're like, we literally don't have time to shoot this scene. So we have to condense this. And you go, but I just lost all those jokes and I spent a week working on that scene alone. And they go, yeah, we just don't have time. We don't have the time to shoot that. So how do we take that one essential line of dialogue in that scene and just jam it into another scene? That is the process. And that is hard to let go of. But in general, I think there's something really magical about seeing your work come to life, and the directors are all really just doing their best. The lesson is learning to let go really quickly of the material and sort of let go of whatever idea you had in your head of how that was going to look. And I've only starred in one movie that I've written, and it was a big learning curve for me. I would imagine it gets easier as I go if I'm in a position to do more of that. But yeah, just sort of letting go of this idea of what you think it should be and just let it be what it's going to be is really what you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure as you continue to do this through your career, you know, like you said, maybe you'll become more used to it or adapt or whatever it is, you know. And obviously, you know, being an actor in a movie, and if you have a good director, there's a lot of collaboration, and hopefully they let you own your character and let you play and do all those things. So it really feels like when there is the time to do it, you get that extra take or that extra coverage to really make what you wrote sell, you know, the way you envisioned it, if possible. And I know a lot of these films that you're currently working on, 15-day shoots, 2 cameras, like anywhere from 6 to 10 pages a day, depending on what location you're at. And you're just flying, and you're getting 2 takes at it. Maybe Yeah. Maybe sometimes
Sometimes one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a
It's
master some overs and you're moving on kind of a thing. And that can be tricky. Yeah. I think the key with all that, at least from speaking as a director, is when I look at a project where it's limited time, I really pick the moments. I go through the script and I say, here are the 3 moments, the things that people are going to talk about when this movie's over. And I schedule it in a way to give those extra time where the exposition scenes and stuff don't get as much coverage. And that's okay because people aren't going to remember those scenes anyway.
That's really smart. That's a really smart way to approach it. I'm not sure that I've been on that set where that's happened.
It'll happen. You and I will get to work together, and we'll have that experience. But you're right. You even as a director, you have to settle sometimes. You have to pick your battles. You have to decide. Okay, do I want to die on my sword? Do I want 5 different angles of this scene about this exposition that no one's going to talk about after this moment or after they see this movie? Or is it really this scene at this special location and this beautiful dialogue and this beautiful moment? And I want the coverage for that scene. So I'm going to smoke through the rest of this stuff so that we can have an extra hour for that to get a couple of beautiful inserts or, close-ups or whatever it is that makes it magical, Let me ask you this. I'm curious to know, and I noticed this specifically in movies that have very short shooting schedules and movies that are very talky. Every time I watch these movies, they have these long walk and talks, and sometimes they have the luxury of having a Steadicam, but a lot of times it's just on dolly track, and the dialogue is way longer than the track can afford, and everybody starts walking like they're old people. They could not walk slower, right?
Yeah. It's painful.
It's painful, absolutely painful. And so for you, as you see that in the movies that you've been in, and I'm sure it happens in every one of these holiday films, where you're like, there's only 60 feet of track, and I'm telling you, we're going to walk to the end of that block, by the way, just so you guys know. So then they say, well, just walk slower, just walk slower. So for you as a writer, and knowing this issue, how do you strategically plan for that? Do you just say this is going to be a Steadicam shot, or you just say, you know what, I'm going to have them walk for 20 feet, and then I'm going to have them sit down, or I'm going to have them look in this window, or I'm going to make it organic so that they don't have to walk the entire time? I mean, how do you get around that issue?
Yeah, that's exactly what you do. You break it up. If it feels like you've gone more than a page of dialogue when they're walking, you just know that's not going to live. And we did a fun thing in Christmas by Starlight. We wrote this long sequence where Kim's character is chasing my character out of the building. And what we did is we broke it up into, she chases him down the hallway. He steps in the elevator. He comes out of the elevator. She's coming down the stairs. He pushes out the front doors. She chases him outside. So we actually broke it into like 4 different locations. So it was never one 200-foot chase scene down the hall. We were able to break it into smaller chunks that actually felt like a much more dynamic chase scene. It was still a walk and talk, but it was actually shootable. And interior is different than exterior, because exterior, they can't actually dress 200 feet of sidewalk with snow.
Right.
They have 50 feet of sidewalk that they can shoot on because they have Christmas trees and lights and snow. And the second you get to 60 feet, it's summer, you have bare trees, and you have, so interior, you can make it as long as you want. But once you get outside, you're really, really limited by where the camera can turn.
Yeah.
So you don't, and the directors will often, they'll take a walk and talk, just depending on how much dolly track they have. They'll literally just go, yeah, you're not going to walk and talk this. You can walk 3 feet, then you have to stop and have this conversation face to face. It's just, but again, like, what you're getting into. We always write bigger. Just go, this is the dream scenario. We'd love to have them walk and run down an escalator and, go on the trapeze. And then they go, all right, we have like 4 feet we can travel. So this is what we're going to do. We'll honor the energy that you've written, but we can't actually shoot that.
Yeah. It's funny. You just think that they would be designed a little better, these walk and talks, because the default that I see so often is just walk really, really slow. And it just always makes me laugh. It always
just shuffle. Can you guys shuffle?
Yeah, just shuffle.
Put on
like
your orthopedic
really,
shoes.
really old.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, so As I was asking you before about the idea of watching other directors direct your material, is there aspirations to also direct? Do you feel like that's somewhere in your future?
I think eventually. I've sort of toyed with the idea. I'm really enjoying the writing right now, and directing is something that I'm still a ways away from. What I'd like to do is get a really good foothold. I've got there's two movies, the two other movies that I worked on this season coming out. One's called Unexpected Christmas, and one's called Christmas at Castle Heart. And I think they're both really solid Christmas movies. So this was a busy year for writing, and I've got some projects in the works that I'm getting ready to pitch to develop coming up. And I just, I'd love to be working on 2 or 3 writing projects a year. And then 3 or 4 years down the road, maybe when my hair starts to fall out, maybe I sort of focus on directing. But between the acting and the writing right now, it's enough on my plate.
Yeah. You're very, very busy. So this is my question that I like to ask the actor type guests on the show. For you as an actor, when you work with directors, there's really great directors, there's not so great directors, and there's a lot in between. But like, what are things that directors do that drive you crazy? Like, when you see this happen or a director does this, you're just like, oh, I hate that. Like, what is that for you?
Blocking with second team. So blocking without the main cast, like literally working out all of the physical action of the scene. And then when you show up to rehearse it, it's already been predetermined for you. That's really, and again, that's not just like a director being selfish. Generally, that's a director who has no time to block a scene. But it's really frustrating when that happens. And I think also directors that don't allow for creative input from cast members. I have a lot of ideas, and I am generally the expert on my character when I come into a movie. I love that character better than anybody. And I've also established that I do often have good ideas. Sometimes they don't work, sometimes they do. But working with a director that's not interested in hearing those ideas is frustrating, because especially when you're under the gun in these Hallmark movies, you really only have 1 or 2 shots to make the best movie you possibly can. And it should be best idea wins. That's not always the case. Most directors are pretty receptive to ideas. They'll go, yeah, that's a better idea. Let's do that. But it's frustrating when a director is like, no, we're shooting the script. I don't have time for that. I'm not going to do that. And you go, well, you're missing an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and I think my second question to that, and I think you basically answered in what you just said, is, what is something that you love that good directors do? Obviously, collaboration is a big one. Having you there for a blocking rehearsal, those are all important.
It's when they give you the third take and they say, this one's just for you. Do whatever you want. And there's so much freedom in that. And sometimes it's a bomb, but sometimes really great stuff comes out of those takes. And the writer and the director end up getting credit for those great moments that come out in those. And good directors know that if they let the actors loose, then often surprises come up, and they sometimes really interesting stuff shows up in those moments. Those are really fun for an actor to be trusted in those moments, to do something that, I always have a joke in my back pocket, or I always want to try and get a genuine laugh out of my scene partner, and I want to surprise them with something. So I'll save it until that third take, and then I'll change a line and I'll get like a genuine laugh. I'll try to do something that creates an organic moment that wasn't scripted. I really enjoy those moments, and it's fun working with directors that are on board with that.
I think, just in my own career, as I've continued to try to develop better and better skills as a director, I think definitely collaboration is a big one. I think as a director, you have to create a nice, safe working environment for the actor, so they feel that it's okay to express themselves. Give them that third take, give them ownership of their character. Yes, be a guide there. Because you're watching the monitors. How visually it's going to cut, and if you have pre-visualization skills, where the pieces are. That's always one thing that actors always give me hassle out, not hassle, but they always joke with me, especially if they've worked with me for the first time, is by the end of the show, they're always like, did we get the pieces, Ryan? Did we get the pieces? Because I think like an editor, and I go, listen, at this moment in the scene, what is the most important thing for the audience to be experiencing? It's this close up on Paul. It's not him saying that line. It's what Paul is feeling about that line. And so many times when I started out as a cinematographer, I would see directors who felt like they had to have a perfect take from the whole way through. Mm-hmm. And they would just keep going until they got the perfect take. And I'm like, you're going to use this entry and that's it. Yeah. And that's all you're going to use. So get that once, maybe twice. Now get in there and find the pieces. Where do you want the audience to be at any given moment in the scene? Yeah. And by getting more pieces and more coverage, you'll have more to shape in editing, and everyone will be more happy with the end result. Yeah. At least that's the experience that I've had.
That sounds pretty right on to me.
It's a little frustrating sometimes for actors, I think, when I do this, is because I think, hey, you know what? Let's get that line again. Let's just go back 2 lines just so we can get that moment just a little bit more on point.
I love that.
Throw it away a little bit more, whatever. And some actors, it's a little, they're like, oh, could we just go back to the beginning? But the trade-off, here's the trade-off though. If you can do the pieces, if you can just go back and go, I need that moment when you turn and you say that line, just throw it away a little bit more. Let's go back 2 lines. And then you do them like, perfect, got it cut. What it allows us to do is it allows us to do that third take where you can do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. I've bought you that opportunity. Yeah. Where if we just keep doing full takes, it's like, I know you would love another take, but we got to move on. Sorry, we don't have time.
Yeah, and often that third take for me is, hey, can we just do that one exchange again, that one piece? I don't need the whole scene. I have one joke that I want to incorporate. I don't need the whole scene to do it. I just want it. You give me that lead up line and I'm going to punch you in the face with something different.
Now, I understand kind of, your flavor and the things you like in a good director. But like when it comes to working with other actors, specifically you, because you've been doing this for a long time, and you've done lots and lots of films, not just these holiday films that you've recently been working on. But what is something that you do or you try to do to be helpful to your scene partner, to the other actors on set? Like what responsibilities do you take upon yourself to say, you know what, if I do this, it's going to help everybody on the team, specifically my fellow actors? Do you have something that it's important to you to do?
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm always open to run lines as much as possible to make sure everybody's as prepared. I don't love to run lines personally, but I'm happy to run lines with other people as much as possible. And honestly, for me, it's just like, show up, be the first one to there for blocking, just be there. So everybody is as prepared as they can possibly be. And for off camera stuff, like to just be present the whole time and not phone it in at any time. It's the best thing you can do, I think, for your actors, for other actors, to just fully be there for them for all of their stuff as well. And not like, it doesn't happen often, but sometimes actors will they'll not want to be there for off camera lines or a look or something like that. I'm always like, it doesn't even matter if I have to be deep in the background. I'll be there for just a glance or something like that.
It helps. It helps.
Yeah.
And other actors appreciate it, and then they reciprocate and they do that for you when you need it.
Yeah, and just to be open to ideas. If an actor has an idea and they want to try something, be open to it and be willing to let it fail. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you have to at least be open to letting other actors try things that maybe you don't necessarily agree with, and just see what works. Because again, it's best idea wins. If something great comes out of it, great. And if it fails, who cares? It's on them because it was their shitty idea.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, this has been great to talk to you. I just have a couple more questions. I love reading books. Big fan of books. Now, I don't read a ton of film books because I find a lot of film books are written by people who actually have never been on film sets. So I don't love that, but I do love books in general. Has there been a book? Do you have a favorite book that's either related to film or related to something that you apply to what you do as an actor or as a writer that you just love? Like you just love this book?
No.
No.
I read The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up.
Yes. I just bought that. I just bought it last week.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. I've read that recently, late, but as an actor, I think I wish I'd read that 15 years ago. It's a lot of a lot of the ideology in that book works really well for being an actor, because you really, if you don't care, particularly when you're starting out, when you're auditioning, and so much of survival as an actor is just being able to weather how long it takes to start a career. And if you come in with any desperation or any, anything like that, you're not going to work. If you can just go like, none of it matters and nothing really affects you, you're probably going to work a lot more. I wish I'd read that 15 years ago.
Well, it has been awesome, my friend, to talk to you today. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. Where can people find you on the social media? Where do you want them to follow
Everywhere.
you?
I'm all
everywhere.
Over. You can't throw a stone without hitting me. I'm the Paul Campbell on Twitter and Paul Campbell Official on Instagram.
Awesome. Paul, thank you again for being on the Filmmaking Friends podcast.